Hello everyone, welcome to PCD Vinyl World. Today we're going to do a video, which I think we're going to start doing a series of these with my son, also Pete, titled Does This Album Suck? And it's basically we talk about probably bands like most controversial albums as far as like albums that maybe some fans love, some fans hate, or most people are like in between somewhere. So today we're going to talk about Led Zeppelin's In Through the Outdoor, their final album. And this was the one I had. It was released with 6 different covers, actually. Everybody knows that probably. So, this is not really an album that sucks, but I would say most people have like an opinion. They love it or hate it. A lot of people now are saying how much they love it and this and that, but it was definitely different sounding than the rest of their catalog when it came out. One, because it's dominated by John Paul Jones' songwriting. There's a lot of keyboard heavy songs on here. There's not much as far as Jimmy Page, like heavy guitar on it. I mean, he's got guitar on every song, but there's nothing guitar dominant wise on the whole album. So that's why it definitely sounds a lot different than the rest of their catalog. So what do you think overall of
well, most people when they make their albums, they probably consider it the worst. Second worst would include Coda.
I ranked it lowest in my ranking.
But
and
if
I'll tell
it was
you
in
why.
a band like, for example, Cheap Trick, it would be like probably in the top 10, right? Because like, you know, some
possibly
of the 80s ones are like.
So the album only has 7 songs because the second side opens with a longer 10-minute track, Carol Selumra, or however you say it, which is a pretty good, long, groovy track. It's not really a bluesy jam song, which they're known for in the past. Opens with In the Evening, which has a pretty good guitar riff. I think Jimmy Page actually uses a Fender Strat on that song, which he did play in concert too, if you watch that Nebworth video. Overall, though, this album to me sounds more in line with like the Robert Plant solo albums that came out after, especially his first one. And I think that even if John Bonham had lived, that this was the direction that Led Zeppelin was going in anyway. I don't think they would have gotten back to that real heavy, bluesy sound. I mean, it's crazy to think that this is only 5 years after, like, Physical Graffiti. It's only 10 years after their debut, really, and they're a totally different band. So what do you think about In the Evening?
Well, it's probably like the most famous song off this album, right?
I would say probably Fool in the Rain or All of My Love are the 2 songs that get played most on classic rock radio. Like In the Evening, probably like the third most, I think.
I just feel like if this would have had maybe 1 or 2 more songs, one of them would have maybe been like more famous. So this could have got this album more sold.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, the reason I ranked this lowest when I did my ranking video is the best song they recorded for this album is actually Wearin' and Tearin', which ended up on Coda. They didn't even put it on the album. It's their most sort of Led Zeppelin-like song as far as heaviness, guitar riffs and stuff. So that's why I rank Coda actually a little bit step above this, because I'm more likely to put that on than this album nowadays. So after In the Evening is Southbound Suarez, which is sort of like this piano boogie song. Not really, I would say it's similar to something on Physical Graffiti, but I can't really come up with the name of the song right now, but it's an okay song.
Yeah, it seems like on this album there's a lot of keyboards.
Right, yeah. So this album, I think Jimmy Page was either struggling with heroin or something at the time, so there's not much guitar present in a lot of the songs. So yeah, it's either piano or keyboards are dominating. The next song is Fool in the Rain, which is one of the more popular songs on the album. It's sort of like this, it's another shuffle song. But I was actually surprised. I just looked it up that this was the only single released from the album, and it didn't even chart in the U.S. And you hear this song all the time on the radio now, classic rock radio, and it didn't even chart at all, which is crazy to think. That because that's pretty radio friendly, almost like a pop song. Also, the drums for that song is where Jeff Porcaro got the intro to Rosanna from Toto, that shuffle in the beginning. So that's where that's from. So what do you think of that one?
Yeah, it's decent, but it's probably not the best song on it, but it's up there.
What do you think about the next song, Hot Dog?
Yeah, that's probably, like, most people won't like that song, but it's decent.
I don't know. I don't understand why it made the album. It's just like sort of like this 50s, almost like Elvis type song, right? Rockabilly type thing. It doesn't really fit the rest of the album, and I don't think it was good enough to make the album if you heard some of the other songs that didn't make it. So that's my opinion about that. And then we're already on to the second side, which opens with a 10-minute Carol Lumbra, however you say it. It's pretty good. I'm trying to think of what type of music it is. I don't want to say like, what do you think it sounds like, that song? Almost Latin influenced in a way, I would say, with the drums.
It's like it's more, well, it's like at like the 8-minute mark it like slows down, I think. Yeah,
but it's very like, it almost sounds like a Santana song, right? Like with the drums and everything, the way the groove is.
Because all of the Led Zeppelin albums, the drums is probably the loudest.
Right.
Thing, right?
Yeah. So then the 6th track on the album is All of My Love, which is sort of like it's not really a slow piano dominated song, but I would say it's like a mid-tempo. It was about the death of Robert Plant's son, supposedly. This is another song that got a lot of airplay, but didn't even release this as a single. I'm just wondering how, at the time when this album came out, were these songs even played on the radio? Because around the time of this album is when classic rock radio just started to come out. So you would have thought some of these songs would have charted somewhere, you know. What do you think about that song?
Well, I mean, it's decent and all. I feel like all these songs are like, there's not one like bad song on this album.
Right.
Well, maybe some people say Hot Dog is.
Yeah, Hot Dog.
But none of these songs are like great. All these songs are just like okay, good. There's no like
killer.
There's no
killer song on.
There's no like whole lot of love, you know.
Right. That's why I was saying Wearing and Tearing. If they had put this on the album, I think they should have ended the album with that. They could have squeezed one more song on here. And then the album ends with a longer bluesy jam called I'm Gonna Crawl, similar to what they did on Presents. They ended up with a slower bluesy song, which is pretty good. That's the only sort of, link to their past, really, on this album. Everything sounds like it of the time, really. And like I said before, I think if John Bonham hadn't died, they would have just continued to go in this direction. So it's almost good that they broke up at the time, What do you think?
Well, Led Zeppelin's one of those bands where it's like, a member dies. It's like the Beatles when John Lennon died. They could never get back together.
Right.
It's like that type. So, I mean, it could go that way, how you said, but it could be like, what if one of the members just leaves?
Well, yeah, they probably would have broke up, though, if one of the members left.
It's like, weren't they going to fire Keith Moon right before he died?
Yeah.
What if they did that with John Bonham?
They wouldn't have done that with John Bonham, probably. And, like I said, I think a lot of this stuff sounds like what Robert Plant's solo albums became in the 80s. And, even, when Jimmy Page did those Firm albums, they're not guitar-heavy either. So, I don't see them like ever returning to a guitar heavy sound, even if they had either broken up and got back together, or even gotten back together at some point, even with Jason Bonham on drums. I mean, possibly after the 90s, he would have went back to a heavier guitar sound, but it's just a strange album to end their career on, even though they didn't mean to end it that way. But like I said, who knows what their music would have sounded like in the 80s if they had continued. They could have put out great albums. They could have put out terrible 80s sounding albums, kind of like what Eric Clapton did, or some of the other 70s artists, you know. But I mean, the final verdict for this album, I don't think it definitely doesn't suck, but it's just compared to the other catalog, Led Zeppelin, you could say in a way it does. I would say half the album is really good and the other half is just okay. Would you agree or not?
Yeah, I think like all the first side is like pretty good, but like when you get to the second side, it's like 3 songs, really?
Well, the one of them's 10 minutes.
A lot of these songs are kind of long.
Well, to me, the 2 worst songs are on the first side. Southbound Suarez and Hot Dog, for me, are the 2 that are just like, whatever.
Yeah, they're decent.
And this album did go to #1 in the U.S. I didn't check their other albums, but definitely had a lot of hype with the different covers and stuff.
I don't know if it's just me, but it's like Presidents came out in 76, right?
I think so.
How come they didn't release an album until like 79 though?
Yeah,
strange.
They did a short tour for Presents, and I guess they just had taken a break, really. So in those 3 years, it looked like, if you see a picture of them from 1977, which was their really big tour, they toured for a long time, and then see a picture of them from 1980 when this album came out, it looks about 15 years later. It's only 3 years. I mean, Robert Plant's like wearing a skinny tie like the New Wave guys, and you know, he doesn't have that long hair. He has like the more big hair that he had in the 80s, sort of. So anyway, let us know your thoughts on this album. Does it suck or not? And leave your comments. And if you like these videos, please subscribe. Thank you.